as everybody knows, 1,000, the podcast is going to change as we know it forever. I'm not ending the podcast. What I'm doing, folks, is I'm going to be literally taking it on the road. That's the next step for the podcast. So between 900 and 1,000, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be bringing back guests that I've really enjoyed or have had a good impact on my life. Hi, Tony. How you doing, buddy?
Oh God, I'm flattered to be in either of those categories.
Yes.
Yeah, God, it's good to see you though. I miss you.
Yeah.
I do a few things a year, and this is the one that I look forward to, Josh.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you. Well, like I said, but that's the thing. Like for me, I came back. I'm in Calgary again right now for the moment. I haven't been able to really interact with anybody here since I've been back, which has been interesting. Um, I this is one of those things where I think maybe Americans are more resilient than Canadians. I don't know, but that desire to actually connect to people, right? I feel might be stronger there than here. I don't know,
I
right?
don't know that interesting on that. I was talking recently with a friend of mine about whether there is such a thing as an author as a quintessentially Canadian voice.
Yes.
Something that Canadians would recognize as Canadian, and in the sense that American and English literature differ. It would be less pronounced, definitely, but
I can think of two,
I wonder
maybe.
if likewise there's not an essentially Canadian perspective, and if in so many ways the fact that we as Americans are essentially unembarrassable just makes it easier for us to buffoon our way through life. I don't know, but I've thought of that.
Well, but sometimes that's to an advantage, right? That's actually to an
Sure it
advantage
is.
sometimes,
Absolutely.
right? I mean, because you're not embarrassed and you're not worried. But like I said, this desire, I've had. Okay, so in the 3 years since pandemic, my following has quadrupled across the board. And sometimes the more controversial I get with some things, the more it's actually grown, which is a weird thing. Something I've learned. But the biggest thing I've taken away from it is I've had this wonderful opportunity. Whereas a lot of people have shut down socially, it's gone the other way with me, right? Because I've been able to connect with people throughout the pandemic.
Well, do you? I mean, okay. That's part of the two things I wanted to talk to you about tonight.
Sure.
Is virtual connection real connection? And I'm asking, and let me confess, even myself, I'm going to be 57 in a week, Josh, and I have several friends who I consider such, actual friends
Mhm.
who I have literally never met.
So my
And
answer,
is that our world now?
I hope not. To that question, I hope not. I had lunch today with a buddy I hadn't seen in 5 years. Like I like that was why I didn't come in because I had this opportunity again to see a real person that I haven't seen in years. That was worth it to me. And it was worth it to him too. I mean, I got like he I knew him when I was working at UPS, and UPS is how do I put this so delicately? It's a chore to work there.
I
We'll just
got you. I got you.
it's a chore
Yeah.
to work there. He was one of my buddies from that era, and we've connected ever since. So I made it a point to come back here to take care of what business I had left, but also to reconnect with people that I hadn't seen in a long time. Because the one thing for me personally about this whole pandemic is life is like short. I would rather go to somebody in person and say, "Hey, man, I love you. I'm glad you're in my life, and I want that to matter." Unfortunately, it doesn't seem, at least here, that sentiment isn't wholly shared. At least it doesn't feel like it's wholly shared.
And okay, so first of all, I have a very selective slice of your country to choose from because they're
Yes.
friends that you and I share in common in a lot of cases, and
Mhm.
people from the creative community who I just absolutely adore. And had I a second hometown, Calgary would be
Oh,
it. And
I
and
don't. Yeah.
and the folks from Red Deer right straight on down are
We're
people that I
sweet.
would.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm proud to call friends of mine, um, and I don't get to see them as often as I would like to. And so of course technology is great. I have two brothers I don't see. One is in Thailand, the other is in Minnesota, and it's fantastic to be able to see them without seeing them. On the other hand, like you said, I have this need to actually put my arm around a fucker's shoulders, right?
Yeah.
And but I don't know if you're not exceptional in that regard because you're a half generation younger than me, and a lot of people they they seem to think that virtual presence is presence, and
It's not. It isn't.
no,
It
it's
isn't.
not.
No.
I
Okay.
agree.
No. Here's the thing. Okay. I think this is damn cool. Where are you right now? I always forget.
I'm in San
Sorry.
Diego.
You're in San Diego, California. I'm in Calgary, Alberta. The fact that we can actually have a conversation right now, I don't take that for granted. I think that is one of the most amazing things ever. And I have a lot of
Absolutely. And
friends.
now
I
you're
have a
touching on my second topic, so go ahead.
yeah. I think that's. So I actually had this talk today. So one of my favorite biblical stories is the Tower of Babel.
Uh-huh.
It's one of my favorite ones because it talks about the whole idea of what happens when you turn the human experience into a battery, essentially. Right?
Right.
Right. That's what Tower of Babel is ultimately about.
Right.
Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, that's what it's about. If you look at it today, our society has more in common with that light bulb or your light bulb right behind you than we'd like to admit. When lights are on, we can do amazing things like this.
Right.
But most of us, but here's the thing. We are in such a fragile world today in the sense that if suddenly the lights were off, what would you do? Now we have
Well,
the
and that is, I've thought a lot about this, Josh, and I don't want to come on your show and be a downer, but
no, go ahead. Just take
well, no, I lost my mother on Christmas Day, and
my
peacefully, peacefully, and it was time. She was tired, and she was 88 years old, and it put me of a frame of mind to start thinking about how not only how transient, but how short is our hold on life. It's very, very brief. There's a series of programs. Paramount does not need any of my promotion to make them more money. But if you haven't watched 1883, watch
yep.
1883. It's fantastic. And as I was watching it, I realized 1883 was the year that my great grandmother was born.
Oh,
So
wow.
the children in that show are people I could have in my childhood known. And in that time, we've gone from you might get scalped by natives on the prairie to walking on the moon is passe. And we now have these magical fuckers that we hold in our hands and have real time
Cyclers.
conversations across hemispheres. Right.
Yes.
And and that is astonishing, but it also reduces us to a certain degree of meaninglessness, right? that each
Yes.
of us as individuals, I mean,
Well,
where do we steal our our purpose from
well,
anymore? Because we don't count, right?
no, I see. In there, I disagree with you. See, I think the more interesting. I think it's like any other point in history in one sense. We are in the time we're in. It's about do you want to be in this time. Now, I had my own little conversation with death when I was 27. So I had so I don't know if I'm ahead of the curve exactly, but I've had my life experience.
You and I talked about that once
Right,
about a deliberative choice to say, "Who will I be?"
exactly.
Yeah, right.
But I've never taken for granted that life is a short thing. And the thing is, I'm very hyper aware of this. And but on top of that, it's also given me a degree of fearlessness that a lot of people don't have.
Right,
And
right.
I fall into I fall so in the event of a trauma, there's 100% of the pie. There's 10% of the pie that stay traumatized. Right? How they cope with something just kind of just it sticks with them. 80% kind of just bounces back. Like it's one of those things where they're resilient, they'll come back from whatever that brink is the moment the pressure is gone. And then there's my percentage, the 10% that get even bolder and just say fuck it even more
Sure.
because
Yeah.
right. That's and I am in that percentage. So I'm a risk taker naturally. But I'm also, but again, I have a certain degree of ambition of what I want to do. Now, does it mean in the grand scheme of things it matters? I think it does, but then again, I'm one of those
Well,
people that
yeah, but see, that's another thing is that what matters shifts generationally. Not even evidently by the month it shifts so radically that I can't completely keep up. Because when you were Charles Dickens, you were world famous because you were the best prose writer of your generation.
Mhm.
Versus now, let me ask you this: do you know who Harrison Schmidt? You ever hear that?
I've heard the name. I don't know who it is.
Okay, Harrison Schmidt was the last man to walk on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's only been 12 people ever in history who walked on the moon. There's Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin.
Blah 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 blah.
We can't name the rest.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, some chick with a giant ass, we know her and her whole family. There's Kim, there's Chloe, there's
I have
Lois.
I have avoided that show like the plague.
And I'm proud of you for it.
Yeah, no, the thing is, I'm deliberately not cool. I think for me,
deliberately not cool.
It's true.
I hear you. I understand.
Yeah, I think to answer this question as a general rule, although I think it's for everybody, it's a little different. I think what's important is I broke it down to really two things: doing what you love with people you love. Yeah. Fuck everything else. That's it. Fuck everything else. Yeah. Everything else does not matter. And it's oddly freeing because I don't get distracted with a lot of bullshit anymore as a result of that. Sure. Like, does it fit one or two? Right. If it's one or two, I'm in. If it doesn't, I don't care.
There's no payoff anyway, right? Speaking of, now here's a complete segue. I want you to tell me about Alice 1. You don't do this on your podcast ever, but let's get a little Josh promotion. What's going on? What are you working on?
So so that is so once upon a time I was asked to do an anthology piece for a Lewis Carroll anthology. And I didn't know what the fuck to do because it's like, what do I say about Lewis Carroll that hasn't been done?
Right.
So I go to the bar that night and I meet a girl with a Gorgon tattoo on her arm. I hit on her. She plays for the other team. We're still friends actually to this day, which is kind of cool. And I go, but she goes, hey, listen, can I use your character, like your Medusa, in the Alice series? And then suddenly I had this epiphany. Alice and Pandora are the same story.
Sure. Yeah.
No, they're the same story. I
absolutely. That. You're right.
They're the same story. Just the evolution of the story, right?
And particularly with old feminine tropes where
right. Exactly. No, it's exactly the same story. And once I had that, it's like, oh, I got a story here. What if Alice opens Pandora's box? Instead of Calamity, she gets a certain Cheshire friend inside her head.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my Alice in Wonderland is literally Alice Pandora opens the box and gets a certain Cheshire friend and gets lost in a Wonderland more like Greek mythology than the Wonderland you know. And the first one, Alice 0, she wakes up in a asylum with the cards as her jailers. In Alice 1, we'll not spoiling too much to say she escapes. She chases the Queen of Hearts over the edge of the world and ends up in the Greek underworld, where to escape, she must play croquet against Jason of the Argonauts.
And I saw an illustration with
with
the Labyrinth, obviously a classic. And who did your illustrations?
Kenzie Carr, aka Kenzie Katz. She's now married and
a genius.
Very
good.
No, she's fantastic. I still owe her some money. I got to actually pay her up. I'm hoping to do that this month. So, but I mean, she is without a doubt. Like she came to me for this, actually. She was ambitious enough to ask me to draw the stuff, and she's really good. And I want to do, so the book with the Alice sequel I'm working on this year is called Alice 2, TOO.
Okay. Uh-huh.
I merged the House of Fate with Through the Looking Glass, and that's all I'm going to give away on that. Okay. Right. Okay. And it deals with Alice and the cat specifically, and what the relationship's really is, and what it will be going forward. Right. It's the middle book.
I can't wait, Josh. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was that. I got my first ever illustrated graphic novel, ironically, I'm working on too. It's called Lights Out. It's my homage to Fahrenheit 451. Some of the ideas we've talked about it, kind of vaguely mentioned it already. Yeah. But my first release this year is going to be my Dr. Seuss.
Oh, good for you. You know, quite interesting. I have, as usual, I come on your show and I have nothing to promote, but I did in 2022 finish finish a children's book. And and I am as big a fan of Dr. Seuss as anyone alive. As you know, we did a Seuss bit at
When words
When Worlds
collide, yes.
Collide 2019. Was that 19?
I was 19. That was 19.
19. Yeah, 2019. Yeah. Um, and because I mean, I consider him a genius. Just
Oh,
the
I did.
wordplay and the poetry is just it's.
He's he's in my top 3 of all time great graphic novelists.
I'll tell
And
you, who else can write his way around the corner is A. Milne. I mean,
yep.
Pooh is a fantastic writing. It really is.
A. Milne's good. Like Lewis Carroll's good. I mean, there's a lot of good like kids writers from that era, right? That just do some fantastic stuff. No, Seuss is a genius. I actually like wrote the. So I gotta get it lettered, but it's written. I'm drawing the basic cover for it. I'm getting some variant covers. It's also gonna be my first Kickstarter
Oh, good.
ever. Yeah, no, I'm doing it on Kickstarter. If I get 200 backers, I do a karaoke night. That terrifies me a
That's
little bit.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Good for you, Josh.
Oh no, dude, I'm ambitious. I want to do everything.
Hey,
I mean, that's just the way I am.
You I'm not mistaken. Recently, you had Tim Niederreiter on your show, yeah?
Yes, I did.
God, I did Tim's show one time. Do you love Tim as much as I do? This dude is
Tim is secretly the kid that wants to go out to play.
Yeah.
That's the thing about Tim.
Yeah.
And so I do drink and draws now on this show. Like I don't know if you like some.
I've seen them. I've been in for a couple.
Yeah. So Tim does figurines. His figurines on the show. I let him do it, right? Which is like, wait, you'll let me do my figures on? Yeah, sure, do. I mean, we don't have a ton of time, but like the thing is, he's the guy I would go with. Say, hey Tim, you want to try something crazy? And you'd be like, there's a little part of him was like, I don't know, but it's like, okay, I'm in. What are you gonna do? And then he'll go for it, and he's awesome that way.
That's awesome. That's what's he working on? Do you have any idea?
Oh, he's always working on writing. Like he's got.
I know. I mean, he's cranking out 100,000 word gems like every month. It just gets crazy. I mean, he must work
I'd say about every couple months, but yeah, no, he's got no. Tim, writing wise, I have to get a little bit more back on track personally this year. Like last year, I mean, again, I did a lot of things last year, but writing I didn't focus on quite as much as I would have liked to.
Last year was a year of first for you. You had multiples. What all were there?
Illustration, short story, video, like producing a show for another company, producing a show for a friend, did directing, broke 900, and there was what was the other one? Comic editing. So I mean, yeah. So I did a lot of things last year. Again, I don't feel bad about it, and that's not including the stuff I published as a writer too. I still did some books, but the second half of the year, I went away from it more than I wanted to. And
how long is your typical work day? I mean, how long do you spend and I don't mean at whatever you have to do to pay the bills, but at creativity.
Oh, this is what I do to pay the bills now, primarily at this point.
Okay.
I've been freelancing. So at this particular point, so I have two regular clients for video work.
Okay.
And one of them I'm working on right now. I'm still getting the first show off the ground. I got most of everything I need. I have to do the rest of it tonight and tomorrow. And then I hand that into the client. If they approve, we have the first episode. Then I work on the second episode. And once the first episode's done, it'll be easier. Like once you set the formula of a show, it's easy to follow through with the formula the rest of the way.
Do you work 8, 10, 12 hours? What's your typical day?
It depends on the day. Some days I don't work very much. Some days I'll just work like 4 hours. Some days I'll go like 16, 20 hours.
I ask that because what I'm finding is that the well of creativity is shallowing up as I age. It used to feel as though I had so much to draw on, and it might be partly because I've been consumed lately by the idea of transience, that our lives have become part of a world that is just replaceable and discardable. You throw shit out. I think something mattered 100 years ago when you put down roots and your technology was whatever a horse could pull. That doesn't matter now, and I feel like I'm an artifact of my time that I
Somewhat.
can just get tossed.
I
Meaningless.
well, see, I don't think that, but I also think like
Well,
here's the
yes, but
thing.
you're a kind person.
Well, no, well, a lot of people, I don't know. Some people might disagree. I can be an asshole too. Like freelancing has taught me how to be ruthless, but no, I just I had an epiphany. So I used to work in the warehouse industry. So I can say this. I worked at Pure Layer Courier for 9 years, 9.5 years,
Mhm.
which probably realistically was about 2.5 years too long, but it was good for me, and especially at the time. But one of the things I realized working that job was, by and large, um, the world tries to make you feel replaceable, but
Mhm.
but there is a flip side to that, and I realized for me it was this: if the world is trying to make me replaceable, that means the world itself is replaceable.
Yes, it is actually. No,
Yeah,
and I like because you can choose what your world is to a certain extent, and certainly what role you play in it. And I get
exactly.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So for me, my way of looking back on it is really pushing back was really simple. Well, I can, if that's the case, I can dictate my terms. The biggest compliment I got when I left Pure Later in Calgary. I worked for that 6 months, more months in BC.
Hmm.
I actually broke my management in BC a little bit. They did not know what to do with me. But and it was fun. It was funny because I realized that really quickly, and I took advantage of that. They tried a
Uh-huh.
lot of their little bullshit games, and I would just wave and smile, and being kind sometimes in that kind of environment just cuts them in ways they never anticipated, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I am, and again, I can be that asshole. But the biggest compliment I got when I left Calgary was I had one of my supervisors who goes, "You know what? Most people that come here let the job dictate them. You did the opposite. You actually were able to dictate to the job."
Good for you, Josh.
Yeah, that was because, but that's the thing. Like, you have to realize you got to understand the game, what the game actually
Oh
is.
yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Right.
And
Right.
a lot of people don't consciously think about it.
Right.
Right.
I've had that debate with people, especially and I don't want to stereotype, but millennials who look for a little bit more life meaning from something more fulfilling from their occupation than we were accustomed to when I was young. And listen, I mean, at the end of the day, you're selling 8 hour slices of your life to the highest bidder, and that's and you do that for the sake of everything else you live for. Now,
Mhm.
if it can be 8 hours spent doing something that means something to you, obviously it's better than doing something that doesn't mean anything to you. But
And
you're selling your life.
to
That's it.
some degree. But here's the catch. Like, this is the part that I think your generation, and I realize, right, and so doing, and older than you, missed out on. Right, you can dictate those terms
Yeah, right.
significantly. Right, and a lot of people just went along with the
It,
program to get along. And
so
what I
I've been relatively shut in, Josh, for a number of reasons. One of which is prior. So I spent Thanksgiving in the hospital because I had spinal surgery, and then I spent Christmas Day in another hospital because my mother was dying in it. So it's been a long, laborious, nasty holiday season. And the year prior, I had it.
shit
Whatever.
happened.
Because skipping ahead, I am aware of the fact that in the Western world, there's a such thing as a labor shortage. Like people just flat won't fucking work. I did not experience it until the other night. My friend and I, on a Friday night, she and I went to a Chili's,
Mhm.
and I think they had about 7 tables open out of 100 because they literally did not have a server. And we've been subsequently to several places in just the past week that there's not anybody working in it because some people figured out during the pandemic, I think, how not to sell their lives cheaply, and they're not going to
Yeah.
fucking do it anymore.
Well, that's the thing. This is what your generation missed. Our generation had to learn this, and the reason we had to learn this is because we realized that we're not going to retire. A lot of these jobs are
Hmm.
thankless,
Hmm.
are thankless that way.
Right.
There's no thank you at the end of the road for us. So
Right.
if that's the case, you got to realize, okay, what do I want out of this? right?
Yeah, we nearly 60 somethings did know, I think, that we weren't going to be like our old man and go work for the factory for 45 years and get a gold watch at the end. But we hadn't replaced that ethos with anything else. So we
No,
continued to work the way that they did
yep,
with the
e-
expectation of something that doesn't fucking exist.
exactly. No, and that's the thing. Like that's why I'm freelancing. Like that's why
Uh-huh.
I'm going
Right.
down this path because I don't see a world. I don't see a world in which I get a regular job,
Right.
and I just don't see it. No, right? Right, and so I have to create something myself. That's where I'm at. Now that doesn't mean I still work. I have a side gig. And here's my side gig right now. I work at the Calgary Saddle Dome. So every Flames game, every like night, I'm there, and it's a cool job. It's a fun job,
I bet
right?
it is.
Yeah, it's a fun job. But it's also an easy job. That's why I'm there. It's
Sure.
easy and it's
Right.
fun,
Right. And you
right? I'm
don't
not.
bring it home and you don't think about it. And yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And
Right.
I don't knock anybody that works that place. All of us
Sure.
are in the same boat there. There's a lot of people that are doing exactly what I'm doing, or they're retired and they're looking for something to do just to have a little, just because it's different.
See,
It's
well,
not.
that's actually my highest aspiration. I want to someday be the Walmart greeter. I
Yeah,
want to be at a point in my life that I can just stand at the front of an establishment and smile at incoming folk. That's enough for me.
and and you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. Like, but
Absolutely
again,
not. No.
right? But you gotta again. I ironically, my buddy, he brought a friend, and the friend was in that point of caring so much about the job, putting so much in, and not getting enough out of it. And there's a danger with this, and that's resentment, right? Not because I truly believe in this concept. Work is your worship. How you work is how you, and not in terms, in
Right. That's yeah. Yeah.
right, but so you gotta, what has happened in my generation is because we know that at the end of the road we're on our own.
Mhm.
We have come to the realization that again, these jobs are replaceable because there's nothing at the
Right.
end for us, right?
Right.
And all of these jobs. So we've realized this. These companies have come to this realization as well, whether they want to admit it or not, and that these labor shortages you're seeing right now are the immediate result of this. Now,
Right.
some of these jobs are going to evaporate completely. That's just the way it's going to be. The other part, but the other, or these companies are going to start acquiescing to the fact that hey, we need this shit, and hey, we got to make it worth their
Right.
while.
I mean, if you're a Chili's in a strip mall in San Diego, California, on a night that it's 63 degrees outside on a holiday weekend, and you have to turn away several hundred people because you can't get a fucking waiter, then you're doing something wrong, right? I mean, your
Yeah,
business
yeah.
model is flawed, right?
Well, that's just it, right? And honestly, if I'm a business today, still with a physical presence, your service is going to be the key to your success
That's
going
all you
forward.
have anymore. You're absolutely right because
Yeah,
the product is gettable elsewhere. I can buy the shit online. I went to a suit company here in town. I wanted a new suit. I went in and get tailored and the whole shit and everything. And I expected what I used to get, Josh, that they would come and they'd bring you a glass of champagne and some orange slices and sit you down and treat you like God. You would think I was insulting them by even being there. Like somehow it was an inconvenience. And so that company will not last because
no.
service is the only reason I would go there in the first place. I'll
Well,
buy the shit online.
here's the thing. Now, this is the thing about Amazon. A lot of people are very uncomfortable. A lot of authors hate talking about, but this is the truth. Amazon has fantastic customer service.
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
I
they have.
completely agree. I want to hate everything about them, mostly because I want to hate the idea that somebody can afford to send himself into outer space
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
steel clad dick. But the truth is, there's a reason they succeed.
yeah,
We today went to a Target, a Ross, and a Marshalls, and I shan't go to any one ever again.
yeah,
In fact, I only went because I went with a woman who believed that you still have to go, and even she, I don't think will, because fuck it, you don't have to. That's what
yeah.
Jeff Bezos is for.
See, that's the thing. You can beat Bezos, and like, here's the thing: the one area they can beat Bezos is service,
If they were
yeah,
right,
that's what it's the one
right.
thing they can
But
beat
you
him on.
won't get quality personnel who are going to put smiles on their face and crop arms around your back and welcome you to the store and make you feel happy unless you treat them right.
Yeah,
And uh, people figured that out. They don't have to go to shit jobs anymore and be unhappy.
Yeah, so that's the thing. You have to come to, like, this is a come to Jesus moment for the physical stores. Can
Mm-hmm.
you beat Amazon? Yes, it's possible. But you're gonna have to win in the one area they shouldn't kick your ass in, and that's
That's right.
service. Right?
That's right. But if you're, it's interesting you mentioned that. What I part of what I like, well, obviously what I like most about Amazon is I don't have to go anywhere. But the second thing is their customer service is excellent.
No, it's
If
fantastic.
that shit ain't there, they'll send it again.
Well, no, okay, okay, so here's the thing. I screwed up on a pre-order. I screwed up. I openly confessed. Do you know what? Their customer service to me was fantastic. They're like, okay, listen, we'll let you off, but you can't do it again, or we're gonna have to punish you. But again, shit happens. I understand. Like,
Good for you.
they
And
were,
good for them. That's,
yeah,
I.
they were impeccable to me, right? They were
Hey,
impeccable.
incidentally, Josh, how cold is it in Calgary right now?
Really warm. We got the cold snap a week before you guys did.
Yeah,
And
so you're a balmy what right now?
we are -3 degrees, so that we'd be at 29, 28 degrees Celsius right now.
God, yeah, it's sweltering and
Yeah, exactly. No,
it's short sleeve weather in Calgary.
yes, it is. No,
I don't
no,
know. Do you know Heather Wilkie? You probably do. Heather's part of the writing.
yeah, oh yeah, I know Heather. Yeah.
Heather and JD and Randy and all were all the time goofing off. And the other day, I think it was Avery Olive actually posted that it was negative. I don't know. What does your thermometer go down to? 30 Kelvin or some shit? I don't know what
yeah.
it is.
So no, okay.
Yeah.
We had a -50 day about a week and a half ago.
God damn it. minus 50. And that at the time, whenever that was,
yeah,
it was colder in Greater Calgary than it was where the Mars rover was.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was
colder
fucking cold
than fucking space, dude.
No. Yeah. So here's what happened when we broke. You all got what we got. You got a mild.
No, it's hitting the U.S. right now.
Yeah. So, and I'm laughing. And here's the thing. No one can say shit to me. If I call you a candy ass on Facebook for your weather conditions right now,
totally.
There's nothing you can say.
Totally.
There's nothing.
It's 56, and we're at 56 the Fahrenheit here, which is 20 of your degrees. Yeah.
No, about 13,
15.
14. Yeah,
15.
We'll say 15.
Yeah.
15.
Yeah. And we're wrapped up in sweaters and scarves.
Yeah, well, yeah, but okay. So here's the thing: really warm places, because I lived in Arizona, because I was there when it was like 73. 73 felt cold in Arizona, which is like it was, for the life of me, it was like, how the fuck does that work? Because it was the first time I ever experienced anything like that, right? So, but because your blood thins out, I'm in like one of the coldest places on earth, and oh my god, I had to go out in that sometimes. Oh my, Tony, it was brutal.
In fact, I saw Avery earlier today was in Red Deer, and she said that it had warmed up to a balmy, I don't know, 0 or something.
Yeah, so it's 32 there, right? So we are in like our mild, like our typical mild post after our post cold snaps. We're going to be there for about another week. And we might get another cold snap at some point. We usually get one more, like, but hopefully not that fucking cold. But yeah,
the reason that I ask about it, and going back to earlier, I talked about the idea of how small is our purchase of life in this ridiculous facade that we pretend to be meaningful, and so about listen, about 250,000 years ago, early modern humans decided to migrate out of Africa into all of every other corner of the world, and they populated what is now Southeast Asia all the way to Australasia and all of Europe and Far East Asia. And 35,000 years ago, they made it as far as the Bering Land Bridge, and they crossed into North America. And some of those intrepid wanderers decided to stop in fucking Canada.
Yes.
I mean, God damn it, it's warmer if you keep walking. You've gone 7,000 fucking miles.
No. See here, okay, Tony. I want you to consider this. Consider this from Think about how big it is from the Bering Bridge to Alberta. Like, think about how many miles that fucking is.
That's so they were just tired. They just
Yeah, no,
this will
seriously.
do.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, think about it. I mean, you go 2,000 miles, you freeze your ass off in the Arctic, okay? You freeze your ass off, you keep
Right.
walking. It doesn't get any better. It just fucking gets.
Well, I guess at a certain point you
well,
would
yeah,
just give up hope, wouldn't you?
you just
Yeah.
come to a point where it's just like, okay, we're kind of warm here. There's mountains.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah,
You just
okay,
say,
right,
oh,
okay, but no. Now Manitoba, you got a point because I don't know why the fuck
they
anyone goes
walked there.
Yeah,
And that's
no.
way the hell on
See,
in.
now there, I don't know. See, you got me there
No,
because
Vancouver, I understand on
yeah,
your
yeah,
analysis, right? Yeah,
no,
that makes sense, right? Yeah.
No. Vancouver, you can even understand us. I mean, you can understand. It's not necessarily the
Yeah.
best place, but you can understand it. Winnipeg. Think about that, okay?
No.
Think about Winnipeg for just a second.
I don't know if I told you my dad played football for the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Oh my God, really? Cool.
1952. Fresh out of college, went to Saskatchewan.
Oh my God.
He was a West Texas boy in Saskatchewan.
Oh, that must have been eye-opening.
His tales were absolutely hilarious. However, in a sense, Saskatchewan is kind of the Texas of Canada anyway, and so it was an easy transition.
Saskatchewan, he probably wouldn't have, but the road trips, some of the road trips he had to went
Oh
over.
God, yes,
yeah. Oh my God, I could just imagine.
Yeah, because I mean they were playing from BC to God, who on the east? I mean Ontario, but well on beyond out there, right? There was somebody.
Well, there's Hamilton, there was Ottawa, there's Toronto. So he went there probably.
Toronto,
He went there. He probably went to Montreal.
Yeah.
Right. Probably like Montreal.
At the time that my dad played in the CFL, there were 12 teams in the CFL, and two of them were called the Rough Riders.
Oh wow, nice.
Yes, there were the Ottawa Rough Riders and the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. I don't know how that happened.
You know what? Why ask why? There's not one that's like, why ask wwhen because it just doesn't. It's it's just like, eh. No, how do I like it? No, like it's when you look at Canada, like some of it you get, like some of it's like we're in like I was in Canmore, Alberta. I lived there for 6 months in between. It's a whole crazy. I
was in Canmore. I love Canmore.
No. Canmore's awesome. So awesome. In fact, I was in the mountains for 6 months. I'm not gonna lie to you, Tony. Like first chance I get, when I go on the road, when I come back to Alberta, if I do come back to Alberta, it's probably gonna be Canmore or Banff. Not some.
Is Canmore the little town where they have that wonderful candy shop in the little antique area? Okay, all right,
yeah. There's that one. And then Banff has got is the touristy ski spot.
Banff was wonderful. I almost got stepped on by a moose in Banff.
I believe it. In Canmore where I lived, the moose and the deer migrated along the road right beside me. Sure. I got it. It's normal there. So. It's very telling that everybody stops for all of these creatures because there's nobody in their right mind wants to hit a moose with their vehicle. It's not a win-win.
Not for your self-interest, you don't. No.
And you're walking the street, you still give them, they're big animals. You give them respect.
Hey, but what about Canadian geese? Those are a bit of an asshole, actually.
No. They're dicks.
They're not. Those aren't nice.
No, they're not. No, they look kind of pretty, but they're like seagulls. They're just dicks.
One of your national treasures, Jim Jackson, and I were in Vancouver, and a goose came over, looked like he was going to assault me, and I was about to kick it, and he said, "No, we don't do that in Canada." And I said, "Well, I'm not Canadian. I'm going to kick that damn thing." I didn't. But that was a goose need of a kicking. I'm telling you.
No, birds can be mean. So I'll tell you a really fun story. My quote unquote first job was that my mom used to work at a cutty farm. So I would take eggs from turkeys. Man, meanest birds I've ever dealt with. You don't think those feathers would hurt? My God, they do.
Sure.
Right? Yep. Yeah. But again, you learn like a lot of these birds you think are cute and adorable. They're dicks. They're total dicks.
Say, there's a somewhere on the highway between Calgary and Canmore, there's some other little off the road village of a kind that has jerky and
Oh,
exotic meats.
um, it's not off that highway, but I know what you're talking about. It's by
It's like
Okotoks.
on the way to Black Diamond or somewhere out
Yeah.
there.
It's Okotoks. There's an Okotoks.
Okotoks, it is. It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
Big
yeah. You
Lots.
go to
You're right.
Okotoks, you go past Okotoks, go a little past it. There's a little road. Yeah, I know exactly.
I think
But
you're right. And they had a sign, and that made me stop and go in because they were selling elk jerky, and that made me think of the fact that somewhere in Alberta, there's someone whose job it is that he's an elk jerker, and I'm not sure what the money is like in that business, but it's a good one.
jerking the elk just for a little
Jerked
pelk.
elks. Well,
Yeah.
and I mean that's one fortunate elk.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to pay extra for that.
It depends. Well, I think it goes both ways. Maybe. Well, at least the elf goes out with a smile. We'll just leave it at that, right?
Yeah, but they also had jerked ostrich in the same place, and I don't think there are a lot of ostrich in.
No, I imagine it's kind of dry. I've had emu, like in terms of like eating it. It just like
Mhm.
it's dry.
Yeah,
So I imagine
right.
ostrich is probably pretty close to the same thing. So
I would think. Hey, in your zoo there in Calgary, I was there one time, and they had penguins just wandering around,
yes,
just right in the middle of people and everything. Just penguins walking
yeah,
around.
yeah. Just don't. What do you want?
Penguins aren't
Look,
native though. They
no,
don't.
no. Well,
No.
true story. I'm filming this. I'm filming. I'm filming. This is just how Calgary is. I'm filming the show. I'm filming the show I'm doing at the public library. So we take a room. Well, the room we took, all right, we took a room that they cut in half. So it doesn't have perfect soundproofing. So the guy next door to us was just waiting. So all of a sudden, while we're filming, or we're starting to film, all of a sudden we hear oompa loompa fiddly day. This is Calgary. And so like what do you do, right? Like you're listening to this and you're like, I want to be mad, but I really can't be. This is like, just one of those, it's
Yeah,
just one of those like moments. And I go, Dan, we got to cut this. And we just break out laughing because what do you do? Right. I mean, this is,
sure. Well,
but this,
Portland's one of those places. I was in Portland a couple of years ago, and would see things that I'd think, boy, there's something you don't see every day. But apparently in Portland, you do actually see it every day. It's just the bizarre becomes so commonplace that it's not noticeable. And
well, here's the other thing. Do you really want to know? Like sometimes
no,
when you ask that question, the answer hurts your brain more than what you're seeing,
right,
right?
right,
And so you decide, no, sometimes you have to know. I do have this in me. I have to know sometimes. But sometimes I'm like, do I really want to know the answer to this? Because it's gonna stick
not all
with
the
me.
time. No.
Yeah, right. Sometimes you just don't. Like
Right.
the penguins wandering, I'm gonna just shrug. I mean, somebody
I
somewhere.
think it's really cool. Listen, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just. I'm like. There's one. There's a damn penguin right there, and it's because we wouldn't do it. We have. Well, no, that's not true. At the world famous San Diego Zoo, we have free range chickens,
Yep.
but that's not very exotic, is it? But
Well, no, not really. And also chickens,
by
by and
comparison to
large,
penguins,
no, no. I mean, we just got penguins chilling, and also, I mean, typically speaking, a penguin could have been comfortable in the weather we had a week ago. It's like,
that's right.
and right,
Right.
and so they would have been wondering, it's like, hey, this is cool. Everybody else is like, God damn, how are you not feeling what we're feeling?
Yeah, there are critters like polar bears and mooses and musk oxes and stuff and everything that you can't even build a house and they're perfectly fine when it's 50 below.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you're next door to them, and it's a little like, again,
Yeah,
when I was in Canmore, that was the one thing about Canmore was, um, you got used to it. Like you just got used to seeing wildlife
yeah,
there. The
but see,
only
but we're not musk ox, are we? We're pasty white guys, and
Yeah.
50 below is 50 below.
Well,
That's
yeah,
too much.
oh no, you just at a certain point you just start swearing. Now I have some. I'm more used to it than I'm more used to it than I used to be. Again, when I was working at Pure Later, I was working in the trailers. So the trailers sometimes were colder than outside, right?
Mhm,
And for all
mhm.
your tricks to insulate, you're still in the fucking cold dealing with this, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right. So I'm used-ish to it, like, kind of,
yeah,
sort of.
yeah. I get
Yeah,
you.
but at the same time, like, no, man, like the first chance when I was going out during those, I had the two. the worst day I was out, and the worst day and the second worst day, I'd go into the mall and I would warm up for a half hour because it just was like, you know what, I don't need to do this anymore, and I'm going to take my time. I did not worry about taking my time going home because it was just like one of those. It's one of those days. No one's in a hurry, even though everybody wants to get out. Everybody knows it too. No one wants. The last thing you want on a day like today is an accident, right? So
Well, now see, now I'm about to do exactly the opposite. As you know, I've lived in the country for a few years now, and I like it just fine. But I'm about to settle out of the mountains and into the high desert, where uh, it for a couple of months in a row, July and August, hovers around 105 in the daytime,
yep.
and and that's a whole different thing because that kills fuckers, right? That's
Mhm.
not you don't just mess around with 105. Um, but I think I can do that probably more easily than I could do like the fact that it. What time does it get dark in Calgary right now? 4 in the afternoon.
But at 5 now. We
Yeah.
just crossed the
Oh,
5 o'clock
it's
line.
improved dramatically, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That I mean the 16-hour darknesses and shit and everything were just that. No,
Yeah.
that's yeah.
No, oh my no! Like we're about 2 weeks past the shortest day of the year. I think our shortest was 4:20, like around 4:18, 4:20 in the afternoon. It's like, how the fuck it's go? It's
Well,
dark
you know,
already.
I used to go up there around Labor Day and spend a week or two, and I found myself with Jackson sitting outside at 10 o'clock at night, and you can read a book. It's like,
Yeah,
damn, how do you go to sleep, right?
yeah.
Because it's bright.
But when you get to December, it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And the other thing too is this is again the weirdest thing. The sun can be out and it can be cold. Somehow it's colder with the sun out than when
Yes,
it's
right,
not. And you're like, what the?
right.
How the fuck does that exist? How does that work? Right?
I have a friend who lived up in Yellowknife and told me that there it's like at 3 o'clock in the morning you go outside because you can't sleep and you got a neighbor mowing his lawn and shit. And it's like, but it's going to be light for 2 weeks, so there's not a whole lot you can do.
No,
Where the hell? Where the hell's Yellowknife? Is that's still in Alberta, right? Or is that
no,
no?
that's way the fuck up. That's another probably 1,000 miles north of me.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's up there, right?
yeah,
It's and yeah, no. When you get up there, it's I mean the sun and nights. Like there's also 2 weeks where it's just nothing but pitch dark out. There's nothing you can do. You're just. I don't know.
Well, I don't
I'm
know.
just.
There's something you can do. Apparently, y'all breed and drink. So I,
Yes.
you know, yeah,
Again, yeah. But again, typical thing. It's cold and it's dark, and I got nothing better to do. I'm fucking drinking,
right, right. So
right?
you get some rye whiskey and a bunch of plaid,
Yeah.
and you wrap up in it and cuddle, and next thing you know, you got new little Canadians in the summertime,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. 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 That's how it works. As my dad used to say, not enough hockey time. It's like
Right.
no, there's not in that environment, right? So,
So
but
hey, what's 2023 going to be? 2022 was a year of first for you. Now, what's this one going to be?
the song is "Carry On, Wayward Son" by Kansas. It's Adventure and
Okay.
Connection, right? Adventure and Connection.
Oh,
That's
nice.
again, I'm taking this on the road. Like I am going to be living in my van for like probably for at least probably for the foreseeable future, right?
Wow.
Well,
How
I
Timothy
don't.
Leary of you.
Yeah,
Good.
well, it's just what I am. Again, if I'm not connecting with anybody and all I'm doing is working, I can go to a
Understood. Yeah.
nicer. Yeah, I can go to nicer locale. Like I can go literally to a beach in your neck of the woods and hit on women half my age. That seems like a more fun Christmas than Um,
It most certainly does. I don't know why I'm not doing it. But
I don't know either. Like I mean, what's right? I don't like again. That's where I'm at. Like I'm at that point. Like, I'm at
you
that
know who was
point.
down here? Leighton Park was down here. You know Leighton.
Oh, Leighton. Oh yeah, I know.
Leighton.
Oh,
Well, he was in Yuma actually, which is like
not that far from you.
2 hours.
No, about an hour and a half from you.
Yeah, yeah. So I did. Yeah, and I think he still is, as a matter of fact. I mean, he's fully retired, so he just jumps in his motorhome and he decides to go to Panama. I guess I don't know.
Well,
And
Yuma is surprisingly nice. Like I would go back there for a vacation. Right.
yeah, I've spent time out that way, and on the California side of Yuma in Imperial County that I worked out there extensively, and so I'm good with the Southern Cali with the Southwest Desert. It's
Yeah,
a beautiful place.
it's an interesting place. Again, when I go as I keep working on getting my teeth to where I really want them to be, like you're right at the border there. Like it's nice
Yeah,
that way
right,
too,
right.
right? It's nice that way too. So I can go to Mexico for a few days or a few weeks to take care of some stuff, come back, enjoy Yuma for a little bit because again, it's a nice small little place in between Phoenix and San Diego, and I like San Diego. I like Phoenix. I hate LA. I just gonna be
You
blunt.
know,
Yeah.
and I think Northerners who've not spent much time in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California, don't realize just exactly how bicultural this place is. That
Oh yeah,
I mean,
big time.
it's definitely not Mexico, but it kind of is. There,
Well, there's that flavor to it for sure, but it's
yes,
also
absolutely.
but it's not okay. So when I was in Yuma and I was getting my teeth fixed, like they knew where their bread was buttered. Like they were very. I will say this, they knew what they were doing. Very professional, and again very cool. And Yuma itself, the town, has a little bit of that, but it's also again it's got its own history, its own. Americans are old enough to have their own culture, no matter where it
That's
goes.
correct.
That's the thing. You're old enough to have your own culture. Canada is still figuring out what that is at this point. And
Yeah, sure.
yeah,
And well, yeah, and Commonwealth status makes that a little bit harder because it, because Canada is not American.
no,
It definitely is not. But it's certainly not British either, right?
it's also trying to. It's also okay. So it's an odd thing. I say this as a. I think Canadians are the most talented people in the world, but I also feel the biggest problem in Canada is Canada doesn't invest in its own people worth a damn. That's why a lot of Canadians, like I said, I'm going to be going to the States primarily next year for a bunch of reasons, but one of them is I have better opportunity to take my platform to the next level in the United States than I do in Canada. I just do.
Yeah, and you know it's not just scale because a lot of people will say, well, yeah, but there are 350 million Americans and what 40 million Canadians
It's
or
not
four.
scale. No, it's not the
Yeah,
scale aspect
it's
of it.
not scale, it's attitude.
Yeah.
It's something to do with disposition, which again brings me back to I don't know exactly what the definitive Canadian voice would be, but I think that Canadian readers could recognize it. I'm not sure that Americans could because we don't bother to think outside of just, well, you know, we're the center of the universe. And so,
I think even Canadians would struggle with that to some degree. This is the other part I'm going to say. We often compare ourselves to the states, and to some degree, almost like, well, we're better than you in some ways, and in some ways we are, some
mhm,
ways. But some of the things we compare is almost like, I don't know if this should be our standard. Like, you know,
sure, sure, right.
right. I don't know if this should be our standard, right? Not just because you have how do I put this? Tripping so low you trip and still above standard some in some
Yeah.
ways you guys have.
Well,
It's not
I can tell you one of the most quintessentially Canadian things that ever happened to me. I was in Red Deer,
mhm,
and I was walking in an April snow
mhm.
uh, to a corner store, and there was a gentleman several steps in front of me on the same sidewalk, maybe I don't know, 15 feet, and he detected a presence behind him and turned around over his shoulder and looked at me and said, "Oh, sorry." Uh,
Yes.
the fuck for? Because you're because you occupy
No,
space.
yeah, it's such a Canadian, and that is truly a very truly
Right.
Canadian thing. We are polite almost to a fault,
Hmm.
right? Um,
Yeah, and I
but
don't know why. So why then do my countrymen not just flock up there and take advantage of that? Because why don't we just go
because
steal all your shit and you're not going to say anything about it, right?
see, and that's well, I would, but then again, I have a little bit
Yeah,
of
well,
I,
you would. You live in Arizona, right?
yeah, but I've learned again. I learned how to be ruthless in the United States, so I know I know how to deal with you fuckers. Oh, really? This is the way you're gonna play?
You know,
Okay,
I was
yeah.
doing a gun control bit for the Huffington Post a few years ago, and I was compare and contrast, and I thought, well, you know, where do gun deaths rank per capita among Americans versus
Oh,
the rest of the world?
geez.
And of course, it's off the charts. You know, we have
Yeah,
like
yeah.
per capita 1,000 times more gun deaths than comparable societies, and so I'm looking at Detroit, and just across the
Windsor,
water
right?
is Windsor, right? And it turns out that in that particular year there'd been something like 800 gun murders in Detroit, but only 2 in Windsor. And I thought, well, that's interesting. There were 2. However, those 2 were committed by an American.
Yes, there were.
That's right.
Like,
Canadians don't kill each other.
well, that's okay. That isn't exactly true. The thing is, here's the thing. We're so polite. This is the thing where we have issues. Is we're so polite. Sometimes people don't know where the line is. There is something very cut and dried about the United States in that regards. Like you cross the line,
Absolutely.
there's something very cut and dry.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah.
In Canada, you don't always know. I'm not going to say there isn't advantages to that, but yeah, like I would go so far as to say the difference between us on there, it's not just because of the number of guns. Because I honestly, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know how you fix that problem down there anymore.
Well, it's unfixable at this point.
I don't.
You couldn't get them back if you wanted to. There
Well,
are more guns than there are
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Right.
The genie's not only left the lamp.
Right.
He had kids. Like
But I can tell you what they're trying to do is to legislate the guns into uselessness by making bullets unaccessible, and most states have done that. Where
yeah.
It costs $5 a round, and you can only buy 50 at a time, or some shit.
Yeah. But I mean, the only problem with that is bullets are cheap to make. That's
Well, you can make them, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the only problem with that. But
right.
I mean, again, the genie. It's not that I don't think you don't have a gun. I think everybody knows you have a gun problem, but there's no legislation in the world that's going to stop it at this point, right? You have to.
No, that's right.
Yeah, there's nothing. You literally at this point have to go after the gun companies. And I have my doubts that, frankly, your government will ever have the balls to do it.
Yeah, and let's say, for the sake of argument, you did. Well, a gun has a long shelf life. I mean,
yes,
a 100-year-old gun is still very useful, and with replacement parts and other backdoor ways, you're just not going to. In fact, back in I want to say it was 2004, I think, Joe Biden was a candidate for presidency in the Democratic primary, and he and 15 other candidates were asked a question about immigration. And he got to go last in his response. And he said, I'll tell you what we're not going to do. We are not going to deport 15 million people. We don't have that many buses. We don't have that much time. We don't have that much longer. And similarly with guns, you are not going to get rid of 400 million firearms, even if you want to. And I don't know that I want to. I know some very, very responsible firearm owners. I'm not one of them, but I know some very responsible firearm owners who I think, hey, own the shit.
Well, here's the thing. I would say this: 95%. Again, Phoenix, for the eye-opening thing for me when I lived in Phoenix was the open carry. Because when you go there, like as a Canadian, the first time, that's a little bit. The first couple of days you're there, you're like, well, this is a little strange. Now, I'm going to tell you that the one that still kind of scares me to this day is the airport security with the semi-automatics. That one still kind of scares me. Right? You're laughing because you know exactly what.
I don't know that actually makes us any safer because
it really doesn't.
It's all just psychological. Right after 9/11, I flew. It might have been 2 days after they reopened the airwaves. And first of all, I had a cast on my hand, and it had a metal implant, and so I set off every alarm in the whole place, and they waved me on anyway. But secondly, there were National Guardsmen roaming around with their M16s on their shoulder in the airport, and I thought, I don't believe that the terrorists are going to storm the terminal screaming "Allahu Akbar" so you can see them, right? What the fuck is the point of this?
Yeah, Well, actually, that wasn't the part that scared me. Here's the part that scared me. I actually saw one of the guys like, "Can I see your gun?" Sure, and I was like, "Oh my god!" This was in 2015. It was like, "Oh my god!" I watched that. I'm like, so what do you want me to do? Like, I looked at that. It was like that freaked me out just a touch more than an average citizen like carrying a pistol. I'm just saying that. I saw that in 2005. 95% of those people are honestly. They do what they do because of either the neighborhoods they live in,
Yeah.
And I understand again, and this is something a Canadian won't fully understand until they live in the United States. There's a reason for that stuff there. Whether you like it, agree or
Sure.
disagree, there's a reason.
Well, even where I live, if I'm taking my dogs for a walk out in the wilderness, it would behoove me to have a 22 on me because I'm going to run across rattlesnakes,
Yeah,
right? So
exactly. And
that's
especially
fine.
especially like when you go to like farmer communities,
Yeah.
especially, that's a very common thing. And people, and again, and you see it, you get it. And again, it's a different culture, different way of thinking. And 95% of these guys are never going to pull them on people unless it was a life or death
No.
situation. And
No.
that's right. That's it. And that's
Yes.
just the way it is. That's just the way it is.
And
It's
hey, it's a sexy bit of fashion. I mean,
oh, it is.
that's quite a style statement when you're holstered up with a 6-shooter, right?
I'll tell you a fun story. I'll tell you a really fun story. So I was at Phoenix Comic Con, and on the third day, on my last day there, they had this very very pretty blonde woman with like one of those big long like bazooka toy bazooka things, and they had the one and her shirt would constantly slide up to the point that the buddy beside me could not help but stare at her. I mean, she was like smoking. So yeah, there is something to be said about a fashion aesthetic. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
won't.
yeah,
Yeah, there
yeah,
is something about that. I won't deny
yeah.
it, but
Hot chicks with deadly weapons.
yeah,
Damn right, that's a fetish. Yeah.
yeah, no, it totally is. And literally watching the one guy, like the one guy beside me, like because again, her top would just slowly come up, and then she put it back down. So it's just like, oh my god, it's like like the
There's the
guys.
degenerate Josh we all know and love.
Yeah, it's
All
there.
right,
Absolutely no. Hey,
good.
listen, I
Took an
am
hour to
totally
bring it out. Okay,
yeah,
got it.
but it's there. All right,
Yeah.
it's totally. Hey, listen, I was beside that all day. There are worse things. There was
Oh
worse
yeah,
things in my life than that. Right, so
yeah, there are.
right? So, but again, it's part of the culture, and again, it's a different thing. And again, I'm speaking like a Canadian that's lived there, so it's and also my family's from Detroit, so I have a very different perspective
Yes.
than
Right.
than
Okay.
than
Yeah.
than the average person on that. And so, I again, Canadians are looking at. I mean, depending on how you, I don't know how you viewed what happened in Ottawa earlier in 2022. I'd look at it like a protest. Some of my Canadian friends would look at it as terrorism. I see it as a protest more than anything else. But after watching what happened there, I understand the reluctance to give up guns. I really, really
Absolutely.
do. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, I
And
get it.
and there is still a utility to the artifact as well. I mean, like I said, you need to shoot a rattlesnake, right? I mean,
Yes, you do. No,
that
no,
fucker's
and
going to kill your pets or your children.
yeah,
I live in an area where there are mountain lion, and and frankly, I know the meat is murder crowd won't like this, but if you're a hunter, I think in a real sense, there's more humane. It's more humane and more moral to consume the flesh of a deer that lived its entire life free range than it is to be gobbling down a chicken that's force fed fucking hormones and antibiotics from the time it's a hatchling, right?
most people that would argue against you have never been in one of those farms. If they had,
Yeah, I mean that's fine. Yeah,
yeah, no, but if they had, they'd be singing your tune a lot more. I've
yeah,
been in, I've been in that farm, those farms. You see them once, you're like, yeah, like it is incredibly inhumane what's done to a lot of animals. Like a lot of people don't again, a lot of people don't want to look at the meat, quote unquote, the heart of the process, not
right.
right. And
Well,
they look
everybody
at
loves sausage and nobody likes to see how it's made. Yeah,
yeah,
right. Yeah,
and in that particular case, you really don't want to see how it's made because once
no,
you see how it's made,
no.
you'll be like,
Hey,
right,
Josh, there was an outbreak of a disease that had strange symptoms that was undiagnosable for quite a time. It was in Illinois somewhere, and it began in hog butchering. I don't know what you call the shit, a meat packing plant. Um, and so it turns out that literally every aspect of a dead pig gets used. And so
mhm,
what they do with the dead pig's skull when it's removed from the rest of the pig is they take compressed air and they jam a hose into the orifices on the skull and they blow out all the shit that's inside of it. And that invariably creates some suspended dead hog vapor that the workers were breathing in. And lo and behold, that's not good for you.
nothing.
What the fuck world do we live in, man? This is the
But
weirdest
no,
shit.
no, no, like, oh, dude, like that's just like again, talking about what we were talking about earlier about workers' rights and workers where they're tolerating and stuff like that. This shit's been going on for decades.
Of course it
It's
has.
just
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. It's just the reality of the
In
situation
some
is,
ways, it's probably better than it ever has been,
oh,
but it's still not tolerable. Yeah.
what I'd say give and take. I'd say give and take. I think some ways it's better, some ways it's worse. I the biggest thing there's two things I learned from the pandemic. The two things: fear will bring out the worst in us.
Yes.
Like it will bring out the absolute worst in us.
Yeah.
The second thing I've learned is we all do not be detached. Do not be attached to any outcome. I learned this. I've learned that was one of the biggest lessons I've learned about the entire
Yeah,
pandemic.
your preconceived ideas are probably not going to pan
But
out
the thing,
like
but the thing is, but not just for that reason. But I one of the things I realized is we have a tendency. I have become I become a lot more anti-authority as a result of the
uh-huh.
pandemic than I was prior to it. And one of the reasons being is that we have a tendency when we're scared to look to some kind of authority for an answer. And what I realize is that in times like that, authority exploits people even more. We talk
Yes.
about right, and especially I think the pandemics are the worst examples of this because there's nowhere to go, right? There's literally nowhere to go. Uh, so what I learned very, very, very quickly is people if they feel safe, right, they will comply with anything.
Yeah,
That's
the old
that's a
revolutionary line in my day was as long as I was comfortable, it felt like freedom.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and that came back in a very, very interesting way. And so now I'm a lot again, I'm far less I trust authority even less than I did prior to the pandemic. And I'm probably I would probably in a not too distant future, I might be more a villain than a hero in a lot of people's eyes as a result. Because I don't
Hey,
look at those
what's the FBI in Canada? Do they have
the
any?
CSIS.
Okay, good. Do they have a file on you yet?
Right, probably.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
they got a file on my dad. So
There you go. Okay, update.
no, it's just no, it just again that's the big lesson I learned from the pandemic. It's my ninth rule is never be unattached to all outcomes. When you hear something, investigate it to its fullest, and no matter who says what, right? And especially in times when you deal with things like censorship, misinformation, things like that, it actually behooves you to investigate more, not
Sure.
trust something else to investigate for you. And again, that's not necessarily a very Canadian attitude, but it's mine, and it's
And it's a
something.
realistic one,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
well, you have to. Like I look at like some of the things we did, it was some of the things we did in during the pandemic. In years to come, we're going to look back and I think we're going to say we made a lot of mistakes, both in terms of what we did during the pandemic, how we came out of. I think there's going to be a lot of looking back of I don't know if we did the right thing or not. So, and but that's just based on what I'm reading now.
Uh-huh.
Right. And one of the things I'm realizing is I feel like sometimes I'm the only one reading right now. Right. So, that's an interesting like perspective. And I just realized that, you know, if you're being discouraged from looking for your own answers, that's when you should look for answers. And when you're encouraged to look for your own answers, maybe then you should look at other people.
Right.
Now,
Right.
now it's to the point that if I see a politician in any country go to me that the sky is blue and I look up and see it's blue, I'm a little worried I missed something. Now maybe that's a
I don't trust that because it agrees with authority. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Well, yeah, I've kind of come to that point. It's like, where did I miss? Right? And maybe that might seem like a sad revelation, but
I
I
don't know that it's not just an inevitable conclusion, Josh. There
yeah.
in classical Western philosophy, there's this trope of the dismal induction of human history, which is that no matter what we believe with absolute certainty to be true, will someday be proven wrong. And
Mhm.
uh, I don't know that's literally so. I mean, the Earth is actually round, but Things that I thought were inviolably the case in my childhood aren't so. It's just
No,
not so.
I find that the only real constant in the world is change,
Hmm.
right? And the world changes. And as I get older, I'm still old enough, young enough where I can still change easier. But now I'm coming to that wonderful point: is do I really want to change?
See, well, that's okay. Now, you're backing up a ways. That was one of the things I wanted to talk about was
Mhm.
this vacillation between constancy and change, and the fact that as I'm more than half lived at this point, I have to face the fact that change is inevitable, but what permanence can I latch onto? What can it be that's my anchor that ties me, whether to place or time or person or something that gives me that meaning of something that isn't subject to change. And I don't know that there is anything. I mean, literally anything can be taken away from you except the love you have for those who love you, right?
Mhm.
But I would like it if it were something more like a homestead in 1883, that this is my acreage and I'll shoot a sheep farmer for running his flock through here, and I don't know that I'm ever going to get that. I don't know that that's the world that we live in anymore.
You might. The one thing again, going back to like my Tower of Babel story, I do think there's going to come a. I think the end game of where we're going for at least the foreseeable future is decentralization.
Uh-huh.
The only real question I have is how we get there. I don't know. Right there,
Right.
I think there's an easy way. I think there's a hard way. I think there's things in the middle, right? But I do think there's going to be a point of disbursement to everything because I don't.
Yeah, if the overwhelming majority of human functions can be performed virtually without physical presence, then the fuck do we live in cities of 6 million people for? I mean,
Exactly.
there's huge empty globe out there. Go live in it. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I do, or at least I see it breaking into smaller communities at the very least,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, I do see some of these traditional things coming back at some point because I think it's necessity. But will it all come back? No, I don't think all of it will, and I don't think all of it should. You know what I mean?
And thinking of the enormity of our space and the smallness of us, I can I one of my most cherished moments in the last decade happened in Alberta. I don't know if you've been to Head Smashed in Buffalo, John.
I
Um,
haven't yet. I haven't yet. No.
okay, well, it consists of little more than a rise on the prairie. It could be 150, maybe 200 feet. Little bluff that if one looks out from it, you look out onto the vastness of Alberta with no township within vision, and the horizon so enormous that it reduces you in that moment to insignificance in a way that actually is very liberating because you
Hmm.
realize I'm, my life's a trifle, right? I mean, it's as meaningful as I make it for me, but in terms of a cosmos in which we occupy this tiny sliver of a tiny galaxy and a tiny corner of a tiny little world and universe and shit and everything, and a tiny little hill on the Albertan prairie, gives a fuck. Doesn't matter, right?
So, but it's not like. But here's the beautiful thing about that. When I was younger, I feared being small. As I've gotten older, I've gotten even smaller, and I don't mind it now because now that means I have the freedom to do whatever I choose.
Right.
Right? It
It
gives me
is
the freedom.
very liberating. It really is.
Yeah. So,
Let go of the idea that you matter, right?
well, there's two ways. I think I look at it that everything matters, but I also, but
Right.
again, even look at
That's the other way to look at it. Right.
that's the other way to look at it, right?
Yeah.
Now, but both ultimately say the same thing. You're free to do whatever you want, right?
Right.
Ultimately, right? But and this is something I said earlier to a friend. To actually, he brought a buddy, and I like I do with very many people. I put them in a space of deep thought. So, what I tell everybody is, what do you really want?
Mhm.
Because that's what matters, right? Grand scheme of things. Again, it's what you love, and who you love, and the people you love, and that's it. Like, there's not much else in life
it,
worth doing.
it is kind of just a glass half empty versus half full way to say it. Is it that nothing matters, or that everything matters equally? And I mean,
Yeah,
including just what matters right now. And
yeah,
sometimes that's saying no and taking time and stepping away and being there for you.
yeah.
Because I mean,
Well, no, and that's totally fine. The important thing is with people is that self awareness and accountability of
yeah,
yourself. That's
yeah,
the
yeah,
important thing,
yeah.
because whether you realize it or not, you serve a want no matter what you do.
Right.
The important thing is, are you in control of the want, or
Mhm.
does the want control you? And they're very different things, but they're both wants you serve.
Yeah, yeah. I and it worries me that if our reaction to a threat, whether it's from a virus or from extremism or from something just manufactured, is going to be more and more isolation and more distrust and more disconnection that comes as a result of that, that is not a good recipe for us. Because
No, no, it's not.
what we need and what we know we need from this past 3 years of experience is direct physical human connection.
Yeah. There's a gal in California. She's moving to Texas that I'm going to go skydiving and jelly beans with, because
Awesome.
that's worth living. That's worth doing.
Awesome.
Right,
Absolutely.
right,
Yeah.
right. That's worth doing. So, and those, again, that's the important shit. I don't want any more in this. Again, I'm only here for a short period of time. So what I care about is, I go to someone like you, go, hey Tony, I love you. You're a sweet man, whether you want to admit it or not. And I'll say it to your face. I'll make you blush. And
You always bring
and
it out. You always bring
yeah,
it out, Josh. That's
yeah,
why we
yeah.
do
Because
these.
again, it's just who I am, and I'll do that to everybody. Again, I've had this really glorious opportunity. You talked to me about, is this connection real? I don't think it's as real as the physical thing, but I do think it is real to some degree as well, because you can
No,
make
I
an
don't know that
impact.
you and I could be as because I consider you a dear friend, and I don't know that we could be except for the time that we've actually spent together in physical presence. And now
Yeah,
it's nice to reconnect, and this is probably enough in the interim, but it would be really nice to get together in Calgary or San Diego as well in person.
yeah. And the
Yeah.
thing is, it might be San Diego. I don't know if I'm going to Windwards Collide this year or not. It's going to come down to my schedule and how this
Are
all
we
works
going to
out.
do it live? Is what's happening with When Worlds
They're
Collide?
going to they're going to do it live again this year, but this is the last year, so I kind of want
I
to be
saw
there.
that.
Yeah,
And
I
why is that?
kind of want.
Randy's just
So,
burned out on her, or what's happening?
well, okay. So here's that. This is the part about the Calgary community that's kind of made me sad. If you look at the people that link the community together, Randy is probably one of the biggest keys to it. Whether people realize it or not, he's one of the most important pillars of the community.
I
In the last
totally
3 years,
believe that. Yeah,
yeah,
I believe it.
right. Now he's going away. Now, who can fill that void? Like, there are only a handful of people, I think, truly capable of doing that, right? And
Why
okay,
couldn't the
so
gals in Owl's Nest do it?
they don't have the personality.
Okay,
I don't. I'm gonna be perfectly blunt. I love some of them, but the truth of the matter is,
I know what you mean. I know
yeah,
what you
yeah,
mean.
they don't have it. They just don't. I don't think they have the ability to carry it. There's okay. So, my opinion, Susie Vidori could do it. Maybe me, if I wanted to do it, but I
Hmm.
don't really want to do it, so therefore I'm DQ'd, right? And it's
Well, I
like
mean,
me,
not doing so much else.
yeah, well, well,
Yeah.
well. I want to go out and go on adventures and take.
Susie's an interesting mention, though. Yeah,
Well, no,
sure.
no, no. Because again, she has the willpower to make it happen. She has the
Right,
personality to do it, and she has the ability to stick to it.
right.
I don't know too many other people that have that combination,
Yeah.
right? I just don't, right? So now, does she want to do it? Probably not, because again, it's a lot.
It is a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. That's why I don't want to do it, right? But if you're talking in terms of connection and keeping the community going in vibrant, right? There, like, you'll have sub communities, right? You'll have sub communities here and there, but that overall link to the Calgary community is not what it was, and that's a shame, because I do not think fully that the city of Calgary really realizes just how special it really is.
If that's lost, then it's a true shame.
I don't know if it's fully lost, but
I
I
don't
don't
know,
think
but
people
the
realize it.
assembly of talent that we had at the 19 when Worlds Collide was
Yeah.
striking. I mean, so many good creative people, so diverse and across so many media. I mean, it was wonderful.
No, it was fantastic. And I don't. This is something. This is Canadians are guilty of this. They don't realize how good they really are.
I've said that
They
about y'all for a long time.
oh
So toot
I
your own horn a little bit more.
no
God, you're
no
supposed
no no
to.
no I agree. Like look I've interviewed Canadians, some of the most talented people I've ever interviewed, and they are literally the worst at just saying, "Hey, I'm great." Like they
Right.
are the worst. And I've interviewed people from across the world, and I will tell you, Canadians are the absolute fucking worst. And they're not going to realize, and this is my opinion. They're not going to realize what they've lost until it's gone, right? And I don't know, right? And it's going to be a while before someone fills that void again. Do I think it can happen? Yeah, I do. There are people here that could do it, but but one of the things I've learned in the last, again, this is one of those things. People, for whatever reason, right now want that distance,
Mhm.
and that's great, I guess. But in the long run, it's going to kill that community that you're looking very desperately for. You have it now,
Agreed. Yeah.
right?
And I don't, in terms of what could have been, I don't think that the pandemic could have been any worse timed
Mm-hmm.
for this small creative community we're talking about that
Mm-hmm.
I consider myself an ancillary outlier to, but I
Yes.
know those people. I respect those people, and I saw what
Mm-hmm.
what is there and what was burgeoning into it, and to a certain extent, a whole lot of those folk just remain in contact, and the good exchanges continue, but there was something about being together for 72 hours that made it flourish. That
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to build a fort on night one of
Oh,
the
that will be, see that and that's where I'm torn, because it might be what I want to do if I do decide to go is I want to book every lesson I learned in the freelance world for the last 3
Yeah,
years, because I've learned a lot about self-worth. Again, as a businessman, I'm a very different animal than when I started, right?
I
And
believe that. Sure. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'd have to be, right?
Just because the world comes and slaps you in the fucking face, and
Oh,
yeah, right, yeah,
absolutely. But also,
right.
again, my experience in America was great because it taught me to fight for my own worth. And this
Mhm.
is something that a lot of Canadians need to learn how to do, especially in the world to come, or else it's going to be a rough ride for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And that's not me trying to be like, a negative person. It's just, this is reality. I can, like, the biggest thing I've learned in this life is nobody is going to fight for you harder than you. And you have to be willing to
That's
do
right.
it.
That's
You
right.
have to be willing to
Yeah.
do it. And if you can't, and that's a big part of the mindset of a freelancer, is that, and the belief that you can do it.
But I would add to that one age learned lesson, which is nobody will fight harder for you than you, and yet you do get to decide to stop fighting, right? I mean,
Yes.
when you've done enough, you're good, right?
Yeah. Oh, no, 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 no. Again, but again, this comes down to what you want out of this, right? Right.
That's right, right,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's what you want out of this,
yeah,
right? And if you
right.
and but that's an important lesson, I think, in life in general. Everything worth having in this life, you have to go out and get. No one's going to give it to you.
No, no,
So, right, and I've learned this, and I've become ruthless enough to go after it. Now, again, I'm a, right, but that was a journey for me.
well, I'm glad to see you just get kicking ass and taking yourself in the direction that you want to go. I mean, it's been God 3 years now we've known each other, and I've seen everything that you had on. The rest of us could see it. In other words, Josh, I think before you really had crystallized which direction you were going. In fact, you were doing audio only the first time you and I did a show,
Yes.
and I think the show has given you a voice and an expression that I've seen you use to kind of hone yourself and where are you going. There have been so many incredibly talented creative people on the show that you've gotten to exchange with. It's got to be incredibly rewarding. I
I got
I
to talk.
can't imagine.
I got to talk brother and sister relationships with Marissa Mayer.
Yeah.
All
God.
right, that's all right. So and I get to talk to Kevin Eastman later this month.
God,
So
that's
I
so.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Well, you
but the
told me
thing,
one of your earlies it was Robert Sawyer when you were
yeah,
still in the
I
single
had Rob
digits,
Sawyer.
right?
I've had Rob Sawyer. I've had Spider Robinson. I've had Charles DeLint. I've had
Just
like
amazing.
Jonas Stahl. I've had Kat Flannery. I've had Susie. I've had
Has Jonas written something recently? I haven't.
Jonas always is writing something.
I know.
I
He's like a
no.
fount of productivity. It's
Well,
ridiculous.
no. But again, you have to be prolific in what you do,
Yeah.
right? Like that's
Well,
the
but he works extremely hard.
Oh no. Anybody who gets to where they are works extremely hard. Now, right?
Yeah.
They have to. They like, again. I
He does the parts that aren't fun, and that's the
oh,
thing because the thinking up the story and the putting it on the page and all that's the fun part. But then there's the business of the business, and that's not the fun part. And he does it. He works really hard.
but again, you have to. This is something like there are so many writers. Again, Canadians don't toot their own horn enough. I don't want to market, but you have to. You
Yeah.
have to scream your stuff out there because if you don't, no one else is going to.
Nobody's
No,
gonna.
right, and that's
That's
thing.
right.
Like I equate it to pro wrestling. Like the old school pro wrestling is because
Right.
that's what you got to do.
That's right. You got to take tickets down to the bar and pass them out and encourage people to come.
Exactly. You got to be your own inner macho. Like I'm a big Macho Man Randy Savage guy. You got to be your own macho man. You got to go out there and you got to be, oh yeah, brother, and just go for it, right?
Yeah.
But you got to do it in your own way. You don't necessarily need to be the loudest, but you got to be constant. And that's something I've realized that a lot of creatives. This is one of the biggest lessons I've learned doing this show entirely. Creatives don't do that enough.
No, because we fall into the trap of thinking we did great work. Why doesn't it speak for itself? Well, because it doesn't. Because it's not that it lays flat, but it's just that it's awash in this enormous ocean of creative product that we've made it possible now in a world with self-publishing and with global intercommunication instantaneously, that there is so much out there that if yours doesn't stand out, it could be a potential Pulitzer winner, but it's just going to drown, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to make it stand out.
Right? Yeah, you have to work at it, and you have to, right. and you also got to accept the fact that there's a lot you don't control. But the biggest job I've learned in this whole thing is all the steps you know how to do to succeed. You do them each and every time, and everything you learn along the way, you take with you to the next project and to the next project and to the next project.
And as you know very well, I mean, you can take a day off for sure, but if you decide you're just going to walk away from it for a few months and come back, it's dead, right? You have to do it, right? You got to. That's the work. The work is remaining relevant.
You have to. Okay, I'm going to quote a UFC fighter, Michael Bisping. It takes a lot of confidence to take a day off, right? But there's a fine line between taking a day off because you're good and being a lazy fucker, right? And
that's
right.
That's a fine line, but it's a very important line.
Yes. No, it is. It is. And by the way, we all need a break once in a while.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying don't take a break, folks. What I'm saying is be deliberate in what you do.
Right. And I think Jonas is a good example, and Rob Sawyer definitely, and I hope Kat, folks who can take a day off because they've done the work and they're good. They're so damn good that take that day off and gather back. But they still want to work. They work hard at it and they succeed.
Because it's not work. It's not exactly work.
No,
it's not exactly work anymore. It's what again, you believe in it. I think the thing that blows me away with most people is this. You worked so hard to create this. So why not just take it the next step further and say, here I am with this great thing? Because it is a great thing. Because I worked so hard on it.
One reason is fear of rejection. It's the same reason. I mean, honestly, that speaking first person, but on behalf of a number of us who we want it to be enough to have done good work because we can't not bring ourselves to say, hey, I'd really like you to go and check out my work, because what if somebody doesn't like it, right? That's not.
Well, and then this is what I would point out to you, and again, not to pull up the politics, just the polarity. Donald
Mhm,
Trump, Howard Stern. The
mhm.
people that hated both of them pay more attention to them than the people that love them.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's right.
right. So I mean, if you want to talk
Right. I mean,
strictly,
if you take the premise that the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about, then you're talking about two of the most successful people in history,
yeah,
especially in Trump's case, that it is literally true that no human being has ever received more publicity than Donald John Trump ever.
yeah,
Not the Beatles, not Elvis, not
exactly.
JFK, not Muhammad Ali, none of them. Right.
And I'm
Yeah.
strictly talking this way. I don't like politics. Don't need to enter the equation
Right.
in
I
this way.
mean, that says nothing for the caliber of the man, but
Yeah,
if publicity is the goal in and of itself, that's how you do it.
yeah, and honestly, there's something to be learned from that.
Yeah, you're right.
There is something to be learned from that. Like whether you like him or hate him, that really is irrelevant, right?
That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. That's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. What matters is okay. Look, Howard Stern at his heyday. We'll go Howard Stern. So people can swallow that one a little easier. When they listened to his show and they liked his show, they listened to him for 45 minutes. When
Mhm.
they hated his show, they listened to him for 90 minutes.
Right. Isn't that
Right. So
great?
right. So what that tells you is it's not about like okay, people like people hate like Rowling's gone off into her own little wonderful tangent right now. But here's the thing. She's selling more books now than she
Nobody's not,
ever did.
that's right. It didn't stop anybody buying books.
Yeah,
Right.
if anything, it increased it.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Brought a whole
right
new
now,
audience. Yeah.
again, I'm not condoning anything Rowling's done, but
No.
but the reality of the situation is you got to look at this honestly now. What she's done is again, this is just the nature of the beast. Take a stand on something. It doesn't again, people are going to disagree with you. It doesn't matter what it is. Don't be afraid to take a stand,
You
right?
know what happened here last year at the Academy Awards when Will Smith popped
Oh
Chris
yeah,
Rock, right?
Wilson being a candy ass. That's what
And
he was. Yeah.
and I thought, well, I'm not sure that whole damn thing wasn't contrived, because it made them newsworthy and relevant in a way neither one of them had been for 5 fucking
Oh
years.
no, no,
You did it
no,
the
it's true.
biggest
No,
favor
no,
you
it's true.
could.
I had a guest come on here try to defend Will Smith. I thought, do you know what would have really impressed me if Will Smith had done that to Joe Rogan?
Sure.
That would have impressed me a lot more
Yeah.
because Rogan would have probably turned Will into a pretzel, and it would
Yeah.
have been very amusing to watch. But or because again, hitting Rock the way you and again, not looking at the whole thing, it was a bad joke. But again, in that environment,
What I thought was bad about the joke is that it's just not a very good. It's beneath it.
no, it was a terrible
He's
joke.
He's a better comedian than that. Right.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. But the response he got from Will in that environment was horseshit. And that right,
Yeah.
and that's just my that's right. That's
If
my opinion.
you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars, you got to take it.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
you're in an environment where you're going to get hit. That's just the reality. Now, I realized too, Will was going through some other stuff on the background that was affecting his frame of mind, and I get that, but it's no excuse. Again, if that guy was Joe Rogan, I'd have been impressed. But it was Chris Rock, right? It was Chris Rock, right. So, and that is my comment on that. And if people want to argue with me, it's like that's the thing. If you somebody that you know would turn you into a pretzel, and you did that too. Okay, you know what? I would have a little bit more respect for you than what
So
I got.
I asked my daughter. She was 32 at the time. I texted her. I said, "Honey, do you honestly care if one full-grown millionaire hit another one in the face?" And she answered me, "I don't care if any grown man hits another one in the face. That's a bunch of man shit that I don't have to care about." And
Yeah,
that's,
exactly.
and you know, some of it is just guy shit, right?
Yes, no, totally. But again, the choice of target, there's just a little part
Oh yeah,
of me.
no, it doesn't make you brave to go slap a man half your size with no fighting.
Yeah, it really
Right.
don't like
Yeah.
that. That's the part that really got me. It's like Yeah, I would buy that a lot more if it was someone that could really fight back,
Yeah,
right? I would
yeah,
I would buy that a little bit. I didn't buy that. I was looking at that as like,
yeah,
you did it because you could get away with it, not
yeah,
because, and that's why, and that's why, folks, I think it's a candy ass move. That's right, right. That's why, because
yeah.
I know that if he had done that to somebody, a certain other comedians, he would have that would have gone very badly for him.
I would love. I'm going to save that as a quote that I'm going to use someday. They're both candy asses, Josh
Yeah,
Pantolinesco.
yeah, yo, well, the thing is, I don't think. See, here's the thing. I don't think Rock was. I think Rock told a bad joke, but
No, but he
but
did stand up. Yeah, you're
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, you're right. So I mean, that's just like you told a bad joke. I think Will totally was, and I would say it to his face. I just like,
I don't
dude,
know if it's actually that bad a joke. It's not a good joke in that it's not very funny. But is the fact that she has hair loss so off limits that I don't really
well,
know
it's a
why.
double standard. It's a double standard too, because if it had been a
Of
guy he
course it
did
is.
that to, if that
Of
had been a
course it
guy he done
is.
that to, no one would have said a word.
Yeah, I mean, we can tease one another about being fat or being bald or being old or being short or being, in a way that we know that women are off limits where that's concerned. And I don't know exactly how I feel about that. I mean, I am learning to rethink double standards. However, it's one that I've had my whole life. You know,
Well, I'm just being like. Here's the thing: there are expectations. Reality. There's just expectations we've grown up with. Now, some of those expectations are changing. That doesn't mean you're going to undo, in my case, 41 years, or in your case,
no,
57 years.
that's
You're
right.
not going to
Yeah,
undo that overnight. You're just
no.
not. So that's just reality. And that's the thing. Like something like that. Like would that now? She's a celebrity. This was a public forum, right? She's fair game technically, right? But it was a bad joke. I don't
Yeah,
think it
what a
was a
good
good
joke.
joke. It was a bad joke.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna defend the joke, but
yeah.
uh, the reaction he got afterwards, it was just like honestly, it made me look at Will Eliza. I
Well,
lost respect for Will.
you know what? The reaction that happened afterward was an example of what I find to be this creeping surrealism that there are things that genuinely matter
Mhm.
happening in the world at all times.
Absolutely.
And the ones we talk about are that shit. Right? I
Well,
mean, they're fucking serious things.
because here's what happens. Okay, well, let's say we were to talk about bodily autonomy, whether we're talking about Roe versus Wade or vaccines. That
Okay.
comes a very polar. Both of them are very polar. Because I use the word vaccine, suddenly people have certain connotations of what that is, what that isn't, right? If I say one thing, I'm an anti-vaxxer. If I say another thing, I'm pro whatever. I'm a sheep. Like I cannot win, right? In terms of the box that we fit in.
Right, right,
Any
right, right.
real issue today, any real thing worth discussing today, what we've done is instead of actually having a discussion, right? We have what we've done now for our. So this goes back to what I said about attachment to outcomes. Is we put people in these boxes. Well, if you think this opinion, if you have this opinion, you think this. That may not be what I think at all.
I hear
But
you. Right, right.
right.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
Well, that's an aspect of tribalism because
oh,
beliefs
absolutely.
hang together
Oh, no, no.
in clutches. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 no, absolutely. And but the thing is, when you have that kind of, so if I were to break what I think has happened in Western society, once upon a time we had a standard and a way things were, and over time that has eroded. So what has happened now is nothing has replaced that standard. So since nothing has replaced that standard, we don't have a concrete of a consensus of how the world works. And since we don't have
Mhm.
that concrete
Right, right, right,
consensus,
right, right. Yeah. There's
my
no
belief.
unifying myth or any. Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's.
yeah, yeah. So we don't have that right now. So what's happening now is now people are trying to break off into team this or team that because again, they're not concrete either. In fact, both, to be perfectly honest, I don't care which box you belong in, you're full of shit. But it's
Yeah.
a box other people are. It's a box other people are can share, right? And so now you're not alone, and you have an idea of how the world works. So if you're a conservative, right, you might be this anachronic dinosaur thinking about values that no longer exist. If you're a
Right, right, right.
progressive, You're thinking about this idea of how the world should be, but you have no concept of there's a reason the go woke, go broke thing has become such
That's
a
right.
right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
either way, there are boxes. And again, now just because you have things that might be more liberal or more conservative, that doesn't make you either liberal or conservative. It just means you are a nuanced human
All right.
being. But if we have those discussions, honestly, people can come to an idea, can communicate. But the thing is, since there is no consensus, we go to tribalism so we don't have to listen to each other.
There's that little uh, historic hotel in Canmore that has a diner on the ground floor where I was in, I want to say it was 2016. Yeah. I was there having breakfast, and there was a crowd of old Albertan farmers in John Deere ball caps, missing fingers, in their 70s, been having breakfast there probably every morning for the past several decades. And I thought to myself then that there are problems and issues that affect those men that probably don't have any fucking thing at all to do with the political
Mm-hmm.
and tribalism, the fucking bullshit that you can tune into a 24-hour news cycle and hear about, because they're worried about whether or not the crop's going to come in.
Yeah.
Right. The things that actually matter, that are the present day stuff. And I bet that it never comes up among them who's a conservative and who's a progressive.
No, no.
I don't think it would matter to them.
Well, here's the thing, right? Here's the real issue. We are taxing these guys to death.
Yeah.
They're feeding us. They're feeding us.
Yeah.
Why
Right.
the fuck are we doing that? The way we're doing that makes no goddamn sense to me whatsoever. But that is what we're doing. Now, somebody, I'm sure, listening to this will go, well, why we talked about this? I could talk about this, but here's the thing. But then I'll fall into either a conservative
You would have to
argument,
take a position. Correct.
right? Or I'm going to
Right.
fall into a liberal argument. And I
Right.
don't really want to do that because I think both are shit. So why would I want to choose one, right?
True. However, by the same token, I could fight either side of the argument. That'd be, and it would be equally vacuous, because I mean the point is that a thing matters if it makes a difference. And in your real everyday life, the things that actually make a difference aren't the shit that we get consumed with.
Oh, exactly. And no, and I agree with you. Like, there's a lot of distraction, and it's on purpose. I truly do. It's a charlatan.
Damn right. Look at this
Right,
shiny object over here.
yeah,
And you're not focused on what
yeah,
you're,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Right.
It's a charlatan's trick. And the fact of the matter is, what I no longer look at. I measure people by their actions and their accountability for their actions. And I don't care who it is, whether it is a fellow author or a fellow politician or a CEO. That's how I measure you. It's universal across the board.
Right.
Right? Yeah. That way I do it. Now, here's the thing, right? Not the way I just did that. There are very few things currently in play that fulfill my standards. Right? Because I'm keeping it incredibly simple.
Hey, how's that kid in Ottawa doing? The Frenchman who's your prime minister. He's like 27 now, right? What's he called? Pierre Trudeau. Yeah, not Pierre
Oh,
Trudeau.
you mean Justin? Oh my
What's he
God.
called? Justin. Yeah, Justin. Is he still your guy?
So my personal opinion, I think he should go. I think he really should.
But he's handsome as all shit.
But he's also one of the most divisive leaders we've ever had.
Oh, well, see, I think, see, it would be difficult to, as an American, you're conscious that every 4 years something rolls around, and you got to be careful, because if you vote for the wrong guy, they could blow up the fucking world, right? But like, I think it would be kind of easier if I lived in Calgary. It was just in my writing, I vote for that cat who was down there at the coffee shop talking about.
But well,
right?
I will say this: I'm not a big Trudeau fan, especially with the light of some of the things he's done in the last couple of years. I'm just not. I don't. I worry very much when I see things that my grandparents are German, and when I see some of the old, and I see propaganda as old as they are coming back into the limelight from my very leader, I'm not thrilled about it one little bit, right?
So it's not just a matter of not liking the Frenchman, is that it?
No, 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 no. For me. It's about watching history play out in a way. Again, my opinion on this is maybe in the minority, but I just some of the things he said, some of the things I did a submission to a magazine, like to a magazine. I compared Canada in 2021 to Germany in 1935, and I submitted that to a thing to be published. It was 3,000 words. I was a little disturbed how similar some of those things actually
I
were.
haven't been up there in too damn long. I need to go back to Canada
Yeah,
to
well, yeah,
visit.
like I say, it just like that. Like I was it's like 2021 during the height of the vaccine mandates. If you look at the stuff in the newspaper and you compare it to Germany, a few other things, heck, even the Vax Pass. It's like this is again. Some of my Canadian friends are going to be really annoyed when I say this. It was made by IBM. IBM made the Nazi punch cards for the Jews back in the 30s using something very similar,
And there
right?
we have it. What is the theorem that espouses how long any two people can talk before invoking the Nazis? It's like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think
But
every time you and I've talked, we've gotten eventually to
I
have.
don't know. I don't know. We got the Nazis last time, but I mean, we
We
did
didn't
go
get to
over a
Hitler
hundred.
last time. We didn't talk
No,
long enough.
but we broke 100 minutes here, so I think that's pretty good. But I mean, I legitimately this is the stuff I was researching. Is I was looking at the Vax Pass, I was comparing it to just some other things I thought that happened in time, and I was like, this is a very terrible
I,
idea,
I've
right?
done.
And
I haven't done as much research as you, but I can tell you that the more I learn about that Hitler character, the more I don't like him. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
it's
generally no.
like,
Right. But so and again, a Canadian listening to this might be like, you can't. It's like look it up. Like there's some things that like there are things that went on in 2021 that if you look at it historically, you're going to be like, well, that's uncomfortable. It's like a little bit.
I can't remember the author who did a fabulous work. It's about 10 years ago now. It was actually Jackson told me about it. And the premise of which is that, we fought the First World War, the Second World War, the Cold War, and then we like to think that since '89, that's all in the past. His
No.
his his position was no, that's all one continuous war, and it's a war between uh, two concepts. The first being a Western Jeffersonian style democracy. The second being a strongman dominated autocratic universe, and we have not reconciled which of those has won. Not to this day. We're not through with that yet.
No. I think, but the thing is, I think once there's a winner, whatever wins won't last long. That's my actual. That's my
You're
actual.
probably right. You're
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
right.
I think whoever wins won't last long. I think what happens if the strong man wins, I think it's shorter actually, because what happens is a tyrant can only operate as long as they win.
Right. And people won't take it. Yeah.
Well, not forever. No.
Right.
The other. So if
But
it
we need
goes
to
the
see the
other,
fact that Russia, China, and a good portion of, um, I don't want to stereotype. However, a large percentage of nearly 7 billion people live under autocratic rule. I mean, it,
yeah,
it just really is still
yeah,
a factor and force in the world that we want to pretend like, we won. We didn't win shit, right? I mean, there's just as much wrong in the world as there was back when there were two
oh,
superpowers.
it's just looking at it. Just again, can you look beyond your lenses and
Right.
see what you see and see what you see? Now, it's not all bad. There are some really cool spots in the world. I had a pop singer friend of mine. Her and her mom just came back from Dubai, and that's a very interesting part of the world right now.
Hmm.
There's lots of like bright spots here. Again, it's not all bad out there. There's lots
No,
of
you're
beautiful and
right.
wonderful
But
things out there
but
too.
let's face it too. I mean, the reason that Wall Street gives a shit about what's happening in the Ukraine is they would like more stability in Russia so that they could sell more fucking product, right? Or
Yes,
a little bit with more open corridors so that we can continue to exploit Russian oil, right? I mean, that's just the truth.
well, it's the open corridor thing is what they want.
Right.
That's what it's really about. And again, if you want to be perfectly fair, I'm not saying, by the way, not saying anything like about the Ukrainian people, what they're going through. But at the same time, U.S. is bombing Somalia, doing the same
Right.
thing there,
Right.
doing the exact same thing
Right.
there, right?
Right.
It again, it's about the shiny thing. right? It's always about the shiny thing, but
Yeah,
right?
and I don't make it. I don't know what makes it a war crime when Vladimir Putin does it, but just foreign policy when Joe Biden does it, right? I mean that
Yeah.
you know,
So, by the way, before there, this is the only political thing. My condolences for your next election. My
oh,
condolences.
oh Lord. Lord. I'm kind of okay with the idea that maybe we could skip this one, but I guess not.
Here now you want to talk about like a little full circle thing. I told you the worst thing that could
Oh,
possibly.
I know, I know,
Yeah, I said that 3 years ago,
I know, I know.
and dear God, because honestly, they're the two worst presidents in history. It's not even close. Right? So, good luck.
Well, there's certainly no Justin Trudeau. What are we
Oh
at, Josh?
God.
Are we going on 2 hours of
We're
this?
going on 2 hours. Oh, this is fun. This has been fun. So, real quick, you wrote a children's book. Congrats. What's your goal this
Yes.
year? What's your goal this
Yeah,
year?
and I will be putting it out this year, and you'll be one of the first person I tell. And that's kind of coming full circle for me. I used to write children's lit when I had a child. She's now 33, and so you're talking about a quarter century. Getting back to where I originated, there's something very unique about the voicing of children's lit that because you don't write down to children,
No.
um, but you do play with the way that they hear and process language in a way that makes the writing so fun.
Yeah.
But anyway, you'll be among the first, and that's happening this year. And the second thing that's happening this year is I think I told you I had um, uh, modernized a translation of Siddhartha, Hermann Hesse's great of 1923, for that to go out as a centennial edition. That'll probably be in the summer.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
buddy,
Well, it's gonna be a
so
good year, I think. Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be great. So, if I happen to wander down to San Diego sometime around July or August, you want
I
to actually do a
you
lot?
you got
You want to do it?
you're home. Yeah, you
Yeah.
come here any damn time.
Okay. So, I also want to say, you want to do it? You want to do a show like it'll be ice cream and booze and us bullshitting again. This time on
Yes,
live.
yeah, yeah. We'll go somewhere to take advantage of the scenery and the perfection, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We'll do what we did. We'll have some bourbon and waffle cones and yeah.
Yeah. Why not? Why the hell not? Like again, for me, it's adventure and connection, and for you, it seems, I guess, a little wish. You say you're a cynic.
I like to think I'm outgrowing my cynicism, but yes, it's
Okay,
still there.
because I'm too old for cynicism.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear you.
I came to a conclusion. So I am not a cynic and I am not a realist. I'm an idealist by default, and here's why. The cynic, I don't know what use of cynicism. It tries to protect you from the world. That sounds like your dog is trying to go. How dare you? How dare you talk against that cynicism? That's okay,
Yeah,
right? But cynicism doesn't seem to. I can't find a good use for it other than protect myself. But the thing is, life's going to hurt anyway. And a realist, I have no idea what real is. I've lived my whole
I
life,
think
and
that would
I
be very presumptuous to say that
yeah.
you've got an idea of what real is, right? That's like, yeah,
So my dad used to come. My dad in my later years would argue, "You haven't lived in the world enough." Well, now I kind of have, and I think
yeah,
he's full of shit.
yeah.
So I mean, when he goes realist, he doesn't do that to me too much anymore because he hates it. Because of my rebuttal, he hates it so much. Here you go with your bullshit. It's like, yeah, shut up. You're the one that brought up realist, and we've gotten to that point in our
Right,
relationship.
right, right. Yeah.
So I'm an idealist by default. I hope for the very best. I don't necessarily say it's going to work out that way. I know that life doesn't necessarily go the way I imagine it to go. But what I do hope for, but I also do believe it tends to work out one way or the other. And I that's so my hope for you, my friend, is this. It works out for you the way you need it to.
I love you, Josh. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, buddy.
All right. So how can people find you? Let's do this properly.
Go through Facebook. Go to T Phillips SD, which stands for San Diego. So TPHILLIPS SD. on Facebook. That's the simplest way. I could point you to a blog
SB?
or an Amazon site or what have you, but
SB? Was it SD?
SD, yeah, T Phillips
Like
SD.
so
Yep.
so like that. For people that are interested, go check that out. I'm a trained professional, Tony. They even gave me an award for this once upon a time.
I know that. This is my dear friend, the only Aurora award-winning podcaster I know, actually.
Yeah. So there you go. So, and I almost know what I'm doing. Don't tell anybody though. All right.
Yeah. Hey, love you, baby.
I love you. And so beyond that, check out my advertising services. If you want to advertise your book, your project, you can do so there. I make videos, audio, words, and pictures. I have a podcast sponsor too. And stay tuned for the rest of the year as I keep announcing some of my master plans and hopefully my first actual live date in Calgary sometime next month. But for everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired, keep shining in the dark, and I'll see you next time.